This episode is sponsored by the Cornell S.E. Johnson College of Business. The Cornell Executive MBA Americas program is designed for goal achievers from any industry. The program works by advancing your career without interruption, by providing global perspectives and intimate classroom settings, and by challenging, informing, connecting, and propelling you. Achieve your goals with the Cornell Executive MBA Americas program on the weekend and close to home. Search Cornell EMBA Americas in my city today.
Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Ellevate podcast. I am your host, Megan Oliver. I'm so excited to welcome you to this week's episode. It's your first one where I am now your solo host, so pardon me if I have any stumbles or anything like that. It's pretty new. Let's go ahead and launch straight into what is happening at Ellevate this week. We do not have any roundtables currently scheduled this week. It's kind of a week off, a chill week. Enjoy your beautiful June. Hopefully the weather is beautiful wherever you are. But yeah, definitely enjoy that. But we do have one of our community circles coming up, which is our Parents and Caregivers Community Circle. That is today, this Wednesday, if you're listening on the day it came out. Such an amazing space for people to come together. If you were at Mobilized Women, which I really hope you were. We did a whole session about the caregiving crisis, and this is a space for caregivers and parents to come together and just talk out, the issues they're facing and get support from others. For in-person events, I have 2 listed here, but we might have more, so don't be afraid to check ellevatenetwork.com for upcoming events, because again, we do these kind of in advance. Our DFW chapter, again, that is where I am, is hosting their monthly happy hour on Wednesday. So again, today, if you're listening to that on the day this came out, and our Twin Cities chapter is hosting a coffee and conversations. That is going to be on Friday. So both of those are in person. So if you are in either of those areas, be sure, go check it out. Gonna be amazing. And don't be afraid also to check online. We have a lot of virtual chapter events coming up too for those who can't join in person or who are like, hey, I live in Milwaukee, but I really want to go to an Atlanta event. You are welcome to do so to your heart's desire. So without further ado, we're going to get into our guest today, she's a returning guest. She's been on the podcast before. She's amazing. Everybody loves her. Super popular when she was on before and now super relevant right now. And so we had to bring her back on. We are going to be talking to Patricia Roberts. It's one of Maricella's many interviews that she did before she left. And it's so good. So don't worry, you will not be saying goodbye to Maricela anytime soon. Patricia, if you didn't listen to her last podcast appearance, she is on a mission to encourage employers to help employees pay down student loan debt and save in advance to avoid it, as higher education costs weigh heavily in employees' minds and have a disproportionate adverse impact on certain employees. She is currently the Chief Operating Officer at Gift of College, Inc., and prior to that, she held legal and program management roles in the education saving areas of Citigroup, Merrill Lynch, and Alliance Bernstein Investments. Through her work with 529 college saving plans over the past 25 years, she has helped thousands of families avoid millions of dollars of student loan debt with her recent book, Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College and Career Training with 529 Plans. She's so knowledgeable in this space. You're going to love this. And it's so relevant right now because so much talk about student loan debt and what all that means. So without further ado, let's go ahead and cut to the interview with Patricia now.
Hi, today I am here with Patricia Roberts, and it's very exciting for me to be here with you, Patricia, because you are one of my former squad mates.
That is correct. I'm so happy we had that opportunity together.
I know it was so good to get to know you much better through our squads, and I cannot wait for our audience to get to know you, because what we're going to be talking about today is something that I know is something you are extremely passionate about, and I think is very important, and we don't usually talk about. So let's start with that. Tell our audience a little bit about the work you do so we can go from there.
Certainly. Well, I have spent the majority of my career helping American families avoid or minimize student loan debt. And how have I done that? I first began working on 529 college savings plans when I was an attorney at Citigroup years ago. And in fact, I was expecting my son in 1998, 1999 when I first began my work on 529 plans. I ended up moving eventually to Merrill Lynch, helping to manage their education savings platform and the 529 plans they offered, also to Alliance Bernstein. And now I am at a small startup which offers 529 benefits along with student loan repayment benefits to employers across the US. And I will say, I mentioned I was expecting my son in 98, 99. He arrived in June of 1999. And I began saving Maricela in a 529 plan for him as soon as he was born, because his dad and I were paying back $100,000 in
Oh
student
my
loan
God.
debt. We want it better for this child. And I'm happy to report now, 23, almost 24 years later, he did get himself to and through college, and we did it debt free with those small, consistent contributions. So I'm very proud of my personal connection to this topic and my professional work through the years.
Okay, so 529 plans. Can you talk a little bit more about what 529 plans are and give a little bit of an explanation? I know many people like me are probably not as familiar with them.
Sure, I'm glad to do that. And you are not alone. There is a lack of awareness of 529 plans across the US. They've been around almost 30 years, and for whatever reason, they're not well understood. And even those who do know about them really don't quite know how they work. So, what are 529 plans? First of all, they are named after Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. There are other sections of the Internal Revenue Code you may be familiar with, like 401k or
Mhm.
403b, but this is another section of the Internal Revenue Code. And these are savings and investing vehicles, really more so investing vehicles, that enable US people in the US to save for a particular purpose in a tax advantaged way. And that particular purpose is higher education. So these are dedicated accounts into which individuals deposit after tax dollars. So you've earned the money, you're depositing them into the 529 plan. And when these investments grow in value, they are not taxed along the way. So you may have money in a bank savings account or a mutual fund account, Maricela, and you know at year end or in
Mhm.
January, you're getting these statements showing you the
Yep.
earnings. You must pay tax on those earnings. Not the case with 529 plans. These grow tax deferred, and the earnings are never taxed when withdrawn to pay for a wide range of higher education expenses. And these include trade and technical school, professional studies, more traditional 2 and 4 year colleges, universities, graduate and professional schools, many forms of higher education, not just traditional college, as many would think. And what can you pay for when pursuing those forms of education? You can use your 529 plan to pay for tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies. Even computers can be paid for. If you're doing a registered apprenticeship, you can pay for the equipment or the tools that you need to do your apprenticeship. There's many forms of education that are covered and many expenses that can be used. And what's great, beyond that tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals, 37 states in the United States offer, as an incentive for people to save in 529 plans, they offer an annual tax deduction or credit for contributions to the 529 plan. So these are really tax efficient ways to plan for higher education. 529, Section 529 got expanded a number of years ago, where you can also now pay for K to 12 tuition. That's less popular. Most people are really saving for higher education, but you can do that as well. And you need to check with your particular state plan to see how that's handled from a tax basis. Because at the federal level, K to 12 is considered a qualified withdrawal, but some of the states do not conform with that. So you want to check with your state plan if you're considering K to 12 for your 529. But generally, these are, investing accounts that have a wide range of investments within them. Some of them are age-based. You probably know about age or target-based funds, Maricela, from your own
Mhm.
experience with retirement savings. And there are many other ways to go as well, many other investment options. But an individual opens an account, they can do it direct with a state 529 plan or with the help of a financial advisor. You don't need an advisor, but if you have one already or you're desiring one, this would be a great topic to cover with someone who's looking at your total financial picture, because quite honestly, second only to home purchase, higher education is often the largest investment a family will make. So if you've
Wow.
got an advisor, I would talk to them about this just as you're talking to them about other forms of savings and investing.
So, as someone who's not from the US, to me, the whole concept of student loans and understanding of what the size of that issue is was eye-opening. I thankfully do not have any student loans, but mostly I think because it was first I did my undergrad not here, but also it was not something I was able to do. Your mission really is to help individuals obtain higher education, which is little as student loan debt as possible. How did you come to that though? Like what did you have an aha moment where you were like, "You know what? This is where I want to spend my time."
I wish I could say I had an aha moment about this direction for my career, but quite honestly, Section 529 was assigned to me when I was an attorney in the investment management division at Citigroup. But by way of background, I grew up in a very low income household headed by a single mom and almost missed the opportunity to go to college because of
Mhm.
cost. And having achieved higher education and knowing firsthand the many doors it has opened for me, and how much stronger I was in being able to eventually step back and help my family in a really significant way once I started earning money. I've just a huge appreciation for higher education. And I also
Yeah.
have a huge appreciation, Maricela, for the cost of it, because my education, both undergraduate and graduate school, came at quite a cost. And it took me 20 years to repay that student loan debt. So, as much as
Mhm.
I'm a fan of higher education, I will always be. I know personally the stress that people are under repaying it. So when I got an assignment as an attorney at a financial services firm
Mhm.
to look into something that could help our firm's clients prepare for higher education, I was thrilled. I mean, I don't know that I
Yeah.
really had an option to decline the assignment, but I was happy to take it on. And it was so fitting because, as I said, I was expecting my son at the time. And it really was very relevant to me as I paid down that student loan debt to find a way to do better for this child of mine.
Yeah. Do you think education is a great equalizer?
I do believe it is. I mean, education, of all the things we can acquire in our lives, education is the one thing that can never be taken away from us. I always
Mhm.
smile when I see graduates on the street, this time of year, people graduating from
I
preschool
know.
through college, through high school. And there's a hopefulness around education in my view. But I do want to stress, and I know we'll talk about it, it's not the same equalizer for everyone when
Mhm.
some come out with significant student loan debt. And that significant student loan debt can exasperate both gender and racial equity inequalities. And I know we'll get around to talking about some of that. So it is a wonderful thing to achieve. It's worth more for those, at least in my view, that don't have the 10 or 20 years of repaying student loan debt, because those people are set back in their
Yeah.
progress.
Is this so? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the inequity or the difference of how people with different backgrounds come out of, college and higher education with much more student loan debt. Um, is this a women's issue? Is this like a women and minority issue?
It is in part. It's women, you may or may not know, hold 2/3 of the outstanding student loan debt. And that's according to the American Association of University Women. There's a lot of research around this. We've
Mhm.
got women holding the lion's share of the debt. And then we know that both Black and African American college students graduate on average with $25,000 more in debt than their white graduate colleagues. And I have one data point that says 4 years after graduation, 48% of Black students, that's almost half, owe an average of 6% more than they borrowed in the first
Wow.
place. And there's also data around Black parents and Latino parents holding student loans for their children. So these individuals, 33% of Black parents, 29% of Latino parents, hold loans for their own children's education. These are called Parent Plus loans, and that's compared to just 13% of white parents. So we've got the
Wow.
students themselves struggling, both by borrowing more and having a harder time repaying it. And then we've got parents of those students struggling as well because, those Parent Plus loans can take years to repay. And sometimes, parents are repaying them well into the retirement years. So imagine the stress on those individuals. It really is considerable. So there really are different outcomes based on some of these individual groups that we've identified.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me to think about the Black and Latino community holding like the parents holding part of that debt. That's I don't know, that's pretty cultural, I think.
Yeah.
Um, because I could see that in my case being, I mean, more likely if anything because of the culture that I was brought up on.
Yeah. I mean, I think parents, I mean, probably all parents or most parents really want the very best for their children.
Mhm.
And I think within certain groups, particularly ones where perhaps the parents themselves did not achieve higher education for one
Yep.
reason or another, or did not have access to it, they probably even more so want to see that their children attain it and would probably do anything, including taking out
Yeah.
loans on potentially unfavorable terms that could almost hurt their futures for the sake of giving their child a brighter future. I could see it.
And it compounds though, right? Because if you have then now even more debt in the family that then I don't know, it's it's concerning, it's saddening to see that, there is that inequity and that, differential.
Yeah, it's true. And we talk about, you hear a lot about building generational wealth.
Mhm.
Nobody's really talking about creating generational debt. And that's
Right.
exactly what's going on here, because if you have a substantial amount of educational debt and you are unlikely to be saving for retirement or saving as much as you could
Yep.
otherwise save for retirement, you're unlikely to be pursuing your first home purchase, which is an incredible way of building wealth. because you're paying down student loan debt. You may also be delaying other adult decisions, such as marrying or partnering with someone, perhaps creating a family of your own. And when you
Yeah.
do, and if you do create a family of your own, you're unlikely to be saving for those children when you're struggling to have repaid your own educational debt. So your retirement is likely not as healthy. You probably have not, or as early as possible, have not pursued any kind of home purchase. And now you've got children who you have not planned for. So this can really perpetuate a cycle of debt. And I don't think there's enough conversation around this.
Yeah. It's interesting when you said generational wealth and like then just followed it with generational debt. It's eye-opening.
It is.
I've read a lot too about wellness and how the one thing that's or the main thing, one of the biggest things that impacts wellness is financial wellness. So what kind of other impact does student loan debt have on the lives of those who have most of it?
Well, you talked about financial well being. I saw a survey recently that says working men, by the way, are more likely to rate their financial well being as excellent or good
I'm not surprised.
compared to women. We know that. But what other impacts? I mean, I've seen studies on heart health and student loan debt,
Wow.
certainly mental health and student loan debt. I mean, I think that, financial wellness is a core component, as you say, to overall wellness. And for these reasons, I really feel strongly that employers should be strongly considering benefits that can impact the financial well-being of their employees, and particularly taking a look at student loan payment repayment benefits and 529 college savings benefits to help employees avoid that debt for the next generation or for their own further education. And I'm seeing some employers open to this possibility, and others beginning to recognize the importance of considering it. So I'm happy to share that there are some open minds out there, and I think that employers are uniquely positioned to help in this area that really is caused by the high cost of higher education.
So I want to dissect a little bit of this, and I want to go into the work of employers. But when we were talking last week before this podcast recording, I asked you, what are your thoughts on, you hear it in the news, it's been everywhere, student loan repayment. And is this a policy thing? Should it be mostly a policy thing? Or where should we be focusing efforts? What do you think?
Well, with respect to the proposed student loan forgiveness, which was proposed by the Biden administration and then considered by the Supreme Court, I think decisions on that are going to come out probably in the June timeframe. That's what's
Mhm.
expected. This is an issue which has strong arguments and strong emotions on both sides of it. And
Right.
my concern is this one time student loan forgiveness program, wherever you come out on it, isn't going to really solve the root cause of the problem. And in fact, it's not going to help. It's going to help a finite group of borrowers and really nobody else, not the
Right.
student the next day, right? We have kids, I
Mhm.
guess, on May 1 of this year, deciding on which school they will attend if they are pursuing higher education. They're not going to be helped by this. So wherever you come out on it, and I think there are some merits on both sides of this, I really have been trying to focus my attention on helping individuals understand how to avoid or minimize the
Right.
debt in the first place. I'm looking at what it is we can control. And there are things we can control. We can save for higher education. I know it's hard, but many families can put aside even a modest amount, uh, beginning as early as they possibly can to help prepare for the cost of higher education. Not every family can do it, but many can if they take a look at their expenditures and try to find a way. They can invite friends and extended family to contribute to those accounts once they open them. I think we all need to get a little more real when
Mhm.
dealing with holidays and birthdays and other milestones. I think we all have both given gifts that we know are probably not ideal to others, just trying to be thoughtful. We certainly have received gifts that have probably wound up in, I don't know, thrift shops or landfill.
Right.
I think parents and future students should feel comfortable saying, look, we don't need another stuffed animal. Look, Jane doesn't need another outfit, which may or may not fit, may or may not be in style next month. Could you possibly contribute even a modest amount to this college account? And I know people would do it. It would save them the time and energy of
Oh
shopping.
God, yeah.
So I think that getting an account opened as early as possible, inviting others to join you on your journey can be very beneficial. And then asking your employer if they would consider helping as well. I think that can make a difference. I think we need to be extremely careful when selecting the school that we plan to attend to make certain it is a good financial fit in terms of
Mhm.
net costs for the family. You know, schools offer various amounts of aid. Waiting and getting that financial aid award is okay, but letting your student know in advance that depending on what the award is, they may or may not be able to go to their dream school because it's not a dream when you're repaying student loan debt for the next 10 or 20 years. So I think people need to take some personal responsibility and pick a school that is a decent financial fit. Can always go to that dream school later in life, perhaps for a graduate degree when you're more financially stable, but I would suggest people keep that in mind. And that's where my focus has been on this forgiveness piece, is to not take a stand per se, but to encourage people to focus on what they can do for themselves and the next generation.
I think what you said a little earlier about, whatever is in this repayment proposition, it won't affect people going forward. It will affect a finite number of people now. So, with that in mind, what you're saying, what can you do in your control? And then what can employers do? And how can they support? Which I think is a big part of it. We've seen in companies, we've seen actually how we there is a lot that companies can do to support their employers. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure, I'd love that. I spend a lot of each day reaching out to employers or responding to their inquiries. Employers of all sizes in all industries across the US are starting to get interest in these topics. And what can they possibly do? They can certainly support student loan repayment assistance for employees. There was a provision in the CARES Act that was extended under the Consolidated Appropriations Act in 2021 that allows employers to repay tax free, may I add, to the employee,
Mhm.
$5,250 a year in student loan debt. And that is something that the employer can take as a business tax deduction. So it benefits the employer. It certainly benefits the employee, that $5,250 a year. And that provision is currently in place through January 1, 2026, unless extended. So you still have 2023, 2024, and 2025 to either ask for this as an employee, ask your employer if they know about tax-free student loan repayment assistance, and we can point you to it should you reach out to Ellevate. I can show you an article that I wrote on this very subject. And if you're an employer, consider offering it. I mean, what a way to distinguish yourself in this, competition to retain and recruit top talent than to really address something that's on the hearts and minds of your prospective and current employees. So I think it's 8%, only 8%, according to SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, only 8% of employers are offering student loan repayment assistance. That means
Wow.
92% are not. 92% of employers are not offering this. Be one who is, I bet you'll stand out. So that's one
That's a
thing.
huge opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity, and I don't think many employers know about this. I do believe HR departments and benefits teams probably were overwhelmed during the pandemic. There were a lot of
Yeah.
other things on their minds. They may not have noticed this provision in the CARES Act, but it is there. So, one way employers can help is to just outright offer up to $5,250 a year in tax-free student loan repayment assistance. Another thing they can do is offer 529 benefits. And these are offered by 10% of employers right now. So 90% of employers are not offering any kind of 529 benefit. And
Wow.
only 1% of employers are matching contributions into these accounts. So 99% of employers are not helping employees by contributing to their 529 accounts. And employers can do a number of things around 529, and some of them are very easy. Most of them are very easy. One, they can bring in an expert like myself to give an educational session for employees, either a town hall type meeting or a parent or family focused ERG would benefit from learning about 529 plans because 2/3 of Americans don't understand what 529 plans are. So that's a really light lift. Have an expert come in and inform your employees about them. Another fairly light lift is offer payroll deduction to 529 plans. Companies like mine, Gift of College, offer a platform that employees can self serve for themselves. They can pick any plan in the nation and begin contributing to it. Employees who save through the workplace save 75% more than if the money first crosses their hands. So that's a great benefit. And then if they wanted to go a step further, employers can match even a modest amount. I have employer clients who are matching just $100 a year into the 529, but that means something to employers.
Mhm.
Others are doing up to $1,200 a year. Whatever it is, it shows you're interested in what the employee values most. And trust me, employees value their family and their futures. So that's another thing. And then the last thing, I have a number of clients who are giving an initial contribution to a 529 account to welcome to the world additions to their employees' families. So instead of the $150 flower arrangement or the silver spoon or whatever they were more traditionally offering, they're now offering a contribution. It could be $50, it could be $250, it could be $1,000. I have one client who's doing 1,000, but whatever it is, it gets your employee and their child off on a good financial footing for the future and really shows you care. So, those are a couple of ways that employers can help. And I would argue they're really key differentiators in this competitive hiring market that you and I both know about.
Yep. And it is a diversity, equity, and inclusion benefit in many ways too, if the people who are most affected are minorities.
That's a really good point, and it's one that I am sure to mention when I'm talking to individuals in HR and in benefits or senior people within firms. There really is, a trend towards wanting to have initiatives in place that are
Mhm.
supportive of DEI, DEIB, DEIBA, accessibility on the disability front. And this is the type of benefit that fits perfectly into that realm. So, yes, good to point that out, Maricela. Thank you.
This is the type of this is the type of thing I believe that actually makes an impact in DEIB, because there's a lot of siloed efforts, but this is actually ingrained in your benefit strategy and ingrained in showing that a company actually cares about the humans that work there.
I believe
So I
it.
I really like it.
Absolutely. And they've got a stake in your child's future. That's kind of nice. I mean, my company is a small company, but we offer $1,000 a year, a match to your 529, a match to your 529 ABLE, which is a portion of 529 that's focused on disability savings, or a contribution to your student loan. We can select any, but for the past 3 years, while my son was still in school, my employer gave $1,000 a year into his 529 account, and my son knew it. And he was appreciative of it, as was I. It
Yeah,
really meant something. I felt that they had a little bit of a stake in his graduation, and it felt good to me, you know?
that's so good. I like it so much. So you wrote a book on this topic, and you did it during a crazy time because it was mid-pandemic. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, why did I write my book? The book's called Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College and Career Training with 529 Plans. And I wrote it largely because, well, first of all, I had time on my hands for the first time ever. I wasn't running in a million different directions. So I had time on my hands. And I was really distressed by hearing on the news, in addition to the very sad news about the pandemic, I kept hearing about student loan debt and how that was continuing to rise, and how are people going to be able to pay their student loans if they've been laid off by their
Yeah.
jobs and whatnot. And I thought, gee, I really understand how to go about avoiding or minimizing student loan debt. I have a son who's about to go into his senior year in college, and I knew he'd be graduating debt free. And I had all that experience of paying down my own student loans. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I combine my years of professional expertise with these 529 plans and my personal experience, both as a borrower, a former student myself, now the mom of a soon to be grad, and share it with others in an easy to understand way. So my objective was to educate. Remember, I had said to you, two-thirds of Americans
Mhm.
don't understand these plans, and to inspire. I wanted to share a little bit about my journey because it wasn't an easy one, but to let
Yeah.
people know what is achievable with small, consistent steps. And I did it. I wrote a book during a global pandemic on this topic. And sort of unbelievable. Other people were like baking bread and
I
learning
know.
learning to knit, and I'm writing a book about avoiding student loan debt with 529 with a 529 plan focus, but I'm very proud of it. I really am.
I think that's great.
It's really funny. I did dedicate it to my mom. She's no longer living, but boy, was she an inspiration to me, both in getting me
Mm.
to college with her encouragement and teaching me some financial principles and along the way, both from her mistakes, right? And from things she learned and taught us as she, gained more competence once she was on her own with her four children after my father disappeared. So I really learned a lot from her. I dedicated the book to her, and my son Benjamin wrote the foreword to the book.
Aw.
I thought that was sweet, Maricel. I was thinking, oh, what personal finance writer can I get, or somebody famous to write the foreword? And I thought, you know what, this is a book for parents. Let's hear from a student, a child who grew up in a family that was prioritizing this. Let's hear what he has to say. And I'm really proud of what he wrote. It really touched my heart. And he appreciates what we did because we informed him of it along the way, that we were saving a little at a time, that we're driving
Uh,
the 23-year-old car because we don't need another one, that we're cutting the cable out because we're not watching so much TV. He understood where that money was going and not going, and he gladly contributed, or at least seemed to gladly contribute some of his money along the way. His birthday money, we put a portion in, or holiday money. And I think he had a much greater appreciation for what he was able to achieve as a result, because he knew that his dad and I were paying down debt while trying to do better for him. And he knew really how we did it. And I think that's great financial education for him.
I think that's a very good point too about how you communicate it with him throughout. And he understands what you've done for him, what your employer has done. It's, I think, an important conversation that parents have to have with their kids.
I believe so. I mean, I really talk to parents all the time about the fact that, letting their children know in age appropriate ways, about financial matters, and particularly about one that is going to impact your child so
Mhm.
significantly, can be really useful along the way. And I think that children learn a lot by what they see, by what they hear,
Mhm.
and you can really, start to educate them. And plus, they're familiar when they go into the college tour process and the college application process. They have a better sense of what funds may be available and what the possible outcomes can be. There's not that sudden shock when the acceptance letter comes for the dream school and everyone realizes all of a sudden that it's not affordable. That takes quite a toll on the entire family, emotionally and
Yeah.
otherwise. So, our son had a good sense of what we had saved, what was possible, what it would look like in this school versus that school. And then once he got his financial aid awards, one of the schools, the school he ultimately attended, Clark University, offered him an academic scholarship, and he liked that school a lot. So we sort of looked at the money situation, and it helped him to decide. He saw what his outcome would be given that
Good.
particular school. And given the fact that it was a high quality one and one he liked, he certainly chose it over a school where we would have had to borrow for him to attend. And we explained all that. And I think he appreciated it. Rather
I think
than going into it blind or putting your head in the sand and nobody saying anything or saying something all of a sudden at the very end is kind of tricky. So,
yeah, no, I think that's a great approach.
yeah, I'm glad we pursued it.
Anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to cover?
One thing I'd like to encourage listeners to do, if you're an employer, I would say look into student loan repayment and or 529 benefits. I think that
Mhm.
they really would be very helpful to you as an employer and to your employees. And I'd say to anyone who's an employee to ask your employer whether they would be willing to offer either or both of these types of benefits. It's quite possible your employer doesn't realize, at least on the student loan repayment side, that it can benefit them
Yeah.
in terms of what came about under the CARES Act. They may not realize how important saving for college is to you. So I would ask your current employer, and if you're looking around for a new job, certainly see if the employer or employers you are considering offer either of these, because if it's important to you, it's worth inquiring about.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patricia.
Sure.
There's so many things here that are so many angles on this conversation where it affects so many people, and it's not, I love the idea of, can employers be more involved, and can they be providing more benefits on this side?
Yeah. And one other thing I will say is I think student loan debt is often looked at as a young person's problem. It's not.
Not.
People are now reaching the end of their lives. I'm not kidding you, and still have not repaid in full their student loan debt. So this isn't just an issue for new hires who are recent
Mm,
grads, although it's likely to be one for them. It's employees, along the age spectrum in, many phases of their lives are impacted by this. Either they've taken out the debt for themselves or they're helping someone else. So I would, definitely consider even surveying your employees to find out who's impacted and who would be interested in this type of benefit.
yeah, and it's likely more people than you think.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. This has been great. Very eye-opening.
You're welcome.
We're gonna go to our little lightning round. See if you're ready.
Well, as ready
If
as I can be, Maricel.
if you could time travel, where's the first place you would go?
I want to say nowhere. I think I'm right where I need to be.
Wow, you're the first person to say that. I like it.
I mean it.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I am gluten free, so no comment on that.
You're really getting all the firsts here. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I need more patience.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a superpower,
Mhm.
in my opinion. If your house caught on fire, what's the first object you would run to save?
I'd grab my telephone. I'm a 9/11 survivor from the World Trade Center, and I know how stressed I was not being able to get in touch with people that day. I would grab my phone. Not that it's the most sentimental thing, it's just a practical reason.
Yeah.
Grab my phone.
Oh, I understand that. I didn't know that,
Mhm.
by the way.
Mhm.
Most used app on your phone?
Photos.
Photos?
Yeah.
Yeah. Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
My mom taught us the value of faith plus action. So, really
Mm.
having very strong faith, but taking steps toward what it is we're praying for, not just standing in our faith. So, that combination is great advice.
I like that a lot. And finally, what's one thought you'd want to leave with our listeners?
Well, given the topic we've been discussing, I'd say be sensible when taking on educational debt. Plan ahead for college costs, as we discussed, and be sure to ask friends, family, and your employer to lend a hand. You do not need to go this alone. And I bet others will be willing to join you on your savings journey. So don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, and you taught me one thing that we didn't cover here or didn't mention, which is their gift cards exist for this type of savings.
That's true. Gift of College has a first of their kind gift card available that can be contributed to any 529 plan. So the recipient can put it in whatever plan they choose. And it can also be used to pay down student loan debt. So I am a fan of these gift cards, not just because I work for Gift of College, but I love giving them. I give them for baby showers and birthday parties and graduations. I know that they are valuable. And many people tell me they opened a 529 account simply because I gave them the gift card and they wanted to get
Right.
started. It gave them a reason to get started. So I'm a fan of those available online and at CVS stores and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is my new baby gifts.
I love it. And throw in a
Yep.
copy of my book. That will
Oh
really help.
yeah.
That's a possibility too, right?
Love it. Well, thank you, Patricia.
I've enjoyed this. Thank you for having me. I've loved getting to know you and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Me me too. Me too. I'm so happy we did this.
Welcome back. I hope you all really enjoyed that interview with Patricia. I know that I did. I know that Maricela actually reached out to me and she said, "Hey, can we have Patricia back on the podcast?" And I was like, 100%. Yes. So good, so timely, and I really hope you all got as much out of that as I did. So, of course, we will not be stopping our uber popular segment, History Makers. It just means that I get to say twice as many as I did before. So that'll be really fun. Let's get into our History Makers of this week. Big one to start with. Jenna Antonucci became the first woman trainer to win a Triple Crown race. That happened I believe, just over the past weekend, as of when I'm filming, but just, so cool to see. Kristen Welker will become the first Black woman to host Meet the Press. Hafize Gay Erkan became Turkey's first woman central bank chief. Farhat Mir became the first female Muslim Pakistani officer in the Las Vegas Police Department. Mai Salama became the first Arab woman on Campaign UK's 40 over 40 list. And Kelly Baus became the first woman police chief of Clausen, Michigan. Well, that is all that we have for you today on this episode of the podcast. Be sure to tune in next week. We've got an amazing interview for you. And of course, more Ellevate events, more history makers, all that jazz. We'll be back soon. And next week is Maricela's interview with Rena Greifinger, who is the managing director of the Maverick Collective, a group of high net worth women who use their power to work towards solving women's health and reproductive rights issues in developing countries by supporting projects that would not otherwise get funding. She's an expert in using philanthropy as a tool to wield significant wealth to finance unproven new ideas on the ground conceived by local women. So timely. You want to talk about timely with Patricia Roberts. So timely. Cannot wait. Such a great interview, and I'm just so excited for you all to get to hear this one. So, see you next week. Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Katherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.